Assassin's Creed Mirage has been a very divisive title within the gaming community. On one side, some fans deeming it to be a breath of fresh air in a return to the golden days of Assassin's Creed. On the other, fans criticizing it because it was not the return to the roots it had promised. Today, my goal is to answer the question, is Assassin's Creed Mirage an improvement or a failure? Assassin's Creed has been set in many places across the world. This time, Mirage had the difficult task of bringing us to 9th century Baghdad, during the golden age of Islam. While Europe was busy trying to defend itself from Viking invasions, the Middle East was basking in the sweet fruit of prosperity. Now, I mentioned it was hard to make this happen, but why was it a hard task to recreate Baghdad? For quite a simple reason. In 1258, Baghdad was attacked by a Mongol army led by a man named Hulagu Khan. This siege lasted 13 days. Now, once the city was conquered, destruction ran rampant across the entirety of its walls, from killing thousands of innocent civilians, destructions of hospitals, mosques, palaces, and even libraries. Significant buildings like the House of Wisdom that had been a project of generations were burnt to the ground, plundered, and most of the precious knowledge contained within it were destroyed. During this attack, it's estimated that over 90,000 people had been killed by the Mongols, and with them, an age of knowledge and prosperity came to a close. Why is this relevant? Recreating Baghdad was difficult because of how much information has been lost due to this attack. Luckily, a man named Guy Lestrange, the most recognized historical geographer of medieval Islam, drew maps 100 years ago and published a book detailing the city with great precision. So, Ubisoft used this and worked with a number of present-day scholars in order to achieve the feat of recreating Baghdad. And apparently, Ubisoft did this so well that it made historians emotional. In Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla, Ubisoft made enormous open-world maps, but with Mirage, although still classified as semi-open world, it's much narrower, scaling the map down from a country-sized level to a city-sized level once again. Now, a lot of criticism around the map mentions that it is quite empty, but I disagree. Why? Because Baghdad was quite literally built in a desert, and while your gameplay experience in the desert areas is quite quiet, these experiences are few and far between. Most of your time is spent in the city of Baghdad as opposed to outside of it. Personally, I didn't feel like this world was empty. It actually felt quite populated. The only emptiness in it is the lack of personality of the NPCs. Even with characters that are quite prominent in the plot of the game, this is an actual conversation between Basim and an important member of the Order.
Welcome, welcome!
What new wonders have you created?
Take a look, nothing else?
Perhaps your skills could be applied here.
Be my guest.
Yeah, it's not fantastic, and although one of my main criticisms of the last 3 AC games has been their goofy voice acting, I feel like Mirage has been exponentially better, except for the random NPCs. Yeah, those were bad. But I personally think the Chainsmoker was incredible.
Put yesterday out of your mind.
But besides the recognizable outfit, parkour and movement are the staple and cornerstone of this franchise. From the iconic leap of faith, running from building to building, and obviously climbing. Assassin's Creed Mirage does all of those things, but it feels different. It's not bad, but it's not great either. The reason for that is because it doesn't feel smooth most of the time. There are certain animations like sliding or even dropping from a ledge that are incredibly well made and seamless. So where does the problem lie? The problem is that it does not feel that way the majority of the time. Mirage has a feature coded into its parkour that seems to snap your character where it believes you want to go. The problem with this is that it sacrifices smoothness and dynamism for the sake of functionality, which in all honesty doesn't always function. Let me use this animation as an example. Which of these two examples feels smoother? If you answered A, you'd be right. Obviously, this animation is incredibly simple in comparison to the making of movement in a video game, but it illustrates the point. Most of you will have seen this animation and known instinctively which one feels better, which highlights the issue with the flow of movement. It simply does not flow. It feels heavy and clunky instead of agile and fast, which is what it is supposed to be. Two stellar examples of what parkour is supposed to feel like is Mirror's Edge Catalyst and Prince of Persia Sands of Time, which, ironically, is also a Ubisoft game. But do you know what definitely doesn't flow in AC Mirage? The combat. It's nothing more than disappointing. Since this game is designed around stealth, entering open combat feels like a punishment as opposed to a deliberate choice. There's one key thing I believe it does wrong. Like many other games, it's basing its combat system on Dark Souls. How so? Two main ingredients. One, you now have a stamina bar that depletes every time you dodge. Two, parrying is the fastest way to deal a killing blow, making the combat look like this. What makes this disappointing in AC Mirage as opposed to Dark Souls is because even stronger enemies in Assassin's Creed are very weak in comparison to bosses in Dark Souls, meaning that it doesn't feel like a just reward for doing something difficult, it feels like a shortcut. Considering you are a trained assassin, yes, you should be equipped to dealing a quick, stealthy killing blow, but if things are to take a wrong turn, you should also be equipped to dealing with them with the necessary method it requires. However, if you by any chance make a mistake during a stealth section and get spotted, you now have to fight using a very rudimentary and simple combat system because you made a mistake, and hope to God no other enemies are alerted either. Talking about stealth, this is another one of the main ingredients to a classic Assassin's Creed game, and in this entry, it feels great. All encounters and zones that are restricted seem to be designed in a way to grant you numerous ways to approach the assassination of targets. That's where the creativity of the developers shine, in making seemingly ordinary architectural design allow you to traverse areas not only quietly, but also efficiently in order to achieve the least chaotic result possible. The only questionable thing about stealth in this game is the NPC intelligence. There will be moments where you kill an enemy in front of other enemies and they'll just stand there like, "Hey yo, what the fuck?" Besides that, another aid to stealth sequences are the tools. The inclusion of throwing knives and blow darts has improved stealth gameplay dramatically, but in essence, all tools have their usefulness, meaning that none of them feel like they don't belong or like you could do without them. If you really zero into the gameplay and want to have a really good and satisfying experience playing this game, you'll be using all tools at your disposal in order to achieve both the most satisfying and coolest result. But do you know what else is cool in AC Mirage? The music. The OST was composed by Brendan Angelides, also known for making the soundtrack to the Netflix show 13 Reasons Why. He's done incredible work for AC Mirage, evoking sounds that would resemble a Middle Eastern setting without falling into stereotypical traps, unlike many Hollywood movies. Brendan introduced himself on the Assassin's Creed subreddit soon after the release of the game and gave the perfect explanation and context as to why this soundtrack is so amazing and accurate. Hyper-talented musicians from Iraq, Egypt, Palestine, Israel, and Tunisia were blended with electronics throughout the OST and are featured alongside the New York Arabic Orchestra. It was important to feel the thriving culture center of Baghdad, feeling the sand, the dunes, and the ever-present danger associated with AC. I hope it resonates with you. And it did. The AC community might have a lot of disagreements on what they like and what they don't like, but one opinion that seems to be the most common is the shared amazement at the expertise and ability present in the making of the OST of this title. The overall motivation of every AC game is usually the same. You are part of a group of assassins that want to overthrow any influence the Templars may have in the area, since it predicates on corruption, cruelty, and it preys on the citizens of that same territory. What changes from game to game is the background of your character. Not always, but that's usually the gist. Now, I didn't play Valhalla much, so I'm not familiar with Basim as much as others would be. However, I really liked Basim as a character. He had a certain level of complexity, some demons that haunted him and his past, but most importantly, it felt like there was some character development as the story goes on. My problem is with most of the other characters. I didn't find them interesting, except Fulad. He's a cool dude. Secondary characters felt one-dimensional, and there didn't seem to be any changes to them throughout the entirety of the story. Actually, if any tension rises between the main character and side characters, is actually because every other character seems to be set too much in their own way. And I mean, I'd rather see two characters grow in different directions than one developing and one staying the same, because that's where complexity can be found in storytelling. So to conclude, was Assassin's Creed Mirage an improvement or a failure? Well, it's a step in the right direction. It appeals to both the RPG fans and the original ones. Sure, it gets a lot of stuff wrong, but it also gets a lot of stuff right. And I honestly believe that there are only two things that are ruining this experience for people. One, their expectations are either too high, or two, they don't accept anything less than perfect. At the end of the day, the most important thing is that I had fun. I couldn't put this game down for 3 days. I just wanted to keep playing. What people should focus on is that Ubisoft has been taking steps, no matter how small, towards a better outcome and better video games. Hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.